Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Aparuta de sangamata satavara ye sodavanta bamujantu satang. So this evening, opportunity to reflect, contemplate Dharma, or the way it is. And so this day has been spent mainly observing, I hope, and taking refuge in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And so this is like reflecting on and recognize the existential reality of being a human individual. You're a one kind of separate entity in a universe. This point is obvious fact, isn't it? Each one of us has to live within the body that we've born into, and we're experiencing life from this point. So this is the center point. We can see the sun is the center of the universe, but that's, in terms of the reality of now, that's the sun is we can see the sun with our eyes. Or maybe not right now, see the sunset anyway. So the sun is in our consciousness, and the center point is this point here. We can give our commitment to scientific doctrines, teachings, and so forth, because they're quite skillful and good, many of them. But what I'm pointing to now is reflecting on the way it is, not from the position of God that is the center and knows everything about everything, but from this position of being this mortal being sitting here. And so this is, in terms of our reality, what we have to live with. This is the center point of the universe. Now this is not Sakya Ditti in terms of me, Ajahn Sumedho, I'm the center of the universe. I mean, that's preposterous, but it's pointing to the Dhamma, the way it is, that each one of us, each creature, in fact, the deer and the turkeys and the ants and all that, they're experiencing this universal system from the limitation of their forms. And so each creature is the center. Now, and this is just pointing to the way it is, in terms of here and now, Dhamma. Now, that if we put it into Sakya Ditti pattern, then it's like I'm creating myself as God, or I'm the center and you're not. That kind of but I'm not making claims on that level, but just pointing to what life is for yourselves, why life is this way, why we suffer and why we have to bear with all kinds of conditions, changes, the karma of this universal system in both its positive and negative aspects. And we experience it from this point of consciousness. So then this is the subject-object reality. Because of the form, having a human body, we can be aware of the objects that arise and cease in consciousness. So, in terms of this moment, you're reflecting on the way it is, on whatever you're feeling, emotional feelings, memories, thoughts, views, opinions, fears, desires, in whatever quality, quantity, or whatever, that this knowing of them is seeing them in terms of all conditions are impermanent. Sape sankhara anicca. So this word sankhara is a Pali word that includes all conditioned phenomena. Conditions are impermanent, they're anicca, they arise, they cease, they're born and die. So that applies to, your own experience here and now. Your thoughts arise and cease, your emotions arise and cease, your memories arise and cease. Born and die, your memories are born and then they die. So there's a dying going on all the time in the human experience, but we don't, we tend to not pay attention to the end of things. The desire for becoming is so strong that we're always looking for the next thing. As soon as we get bored or fed up or whatever, we look for the next exciting rebirth. So, like looking for happiness, with the meditation, like what we're doing here, we're actually learning to patiently observe the process of birth and death as it happens in our mind. So that's why you're willing to sit through boredom and pain and despair and all these negative states that in most cases, most modern situations, people don't. They can't be bothered with it. They've got to, as soon as you feel bored, disinterested, fed up, despairing, disillusioned, you seek something else. Either you eat something, switch on the telly, call your friends on your cell phone, play around with your computers, surf the internet. There are so many distractions now, so many rebirths, that the chance to observe the ending of anything is increasingly more difficult. They say in the old days where there wasn't all this, then one did have to, say in a cold, long winter, learn how to bear with, patiently while you're knitting socks or doing something. So there's a kind of wisdom developed that comes through patient endurance. But in modern life, the stress factor is because there's so many immediate distractions. Like going to Thailand now, it used to be you land at the airport in Bangkok, and as soon as they'd open the door of the airplane, this heat would kind of suddenly overwhelm you, the heat from Bangkok. The plane was air conditioned, they opened the door, and then the heat kind of poured in, tropical heat. Now you go through air conditioned passageway, they open the door, and it's not, you don't get this heat wave, and you go into an air-conditioned airport, from an air-conditioned airport to an air-conditioned taxi, from an air-conditioned taxi to an air-conditioned hotel, and then you go on tours in air-conditioned coaches. So you don't have to, you can always, find this level of comfort that we demand now. We're more demanding of this as a continuous kind of experience of comfort and ease, and feel irritated when things aren't comfortable, when the aging process, sickness, loss of the love, the boredom, the disillusionment. All these are part of human experience that we tend to ignore or dismiss or resist. So in meditation, like this retreat, is why we do sit for 45 minutes or walk 45 minutes, because it gives us a chance to bear with things, to develop a confidence in witnessing and observing. It's not just for sakyaditi to make me more patient. My impatience is a bad thing. I've got to make myself patient. I used to think like that. But that's still, wanting to get something. I see something wrong with myself and I don't like it, and so I do things to kind of punish myself and make myself better. So this sense of a self, sakyaditi, first fetter, sangyojana in Pali. Now these first three fetters is because they are artificial fetters. They're made by human ignorance. Language and cultural conditioning and the ego, the self-view. So they're not like consciousness or the body. The body is dhammacca, it's natural. We didn't create it, and consciousness we didn't create. But we do create ourselves as separate personalities, egos, sakyaditi. So this is, you notice the political, social, economic problems all around this delusion of a self, cultural attitudes and prejudices, religious biases, views and opinions that people have, and believe in, and willing to die for, willing to kill for, because, to defend democracy against the axis of evil, we're willing to kill to preserve this sense of democracy. And so this is all sakyaditi, silabhata paramasa vicikecha. So you see, our governments and the society is based on ignorance, avijja, not understanding Dhamma. So this word avijja is a Pali word meaning not understanding the truth of the way it is. So we operate from the illusions, from the conditioned attitudes, from prejudices, biases, cultural conditioning, ideals of how things should be. We create ourselves as fully committed to our personality and viewing ourselves in various ways, positive and negatively. So that's where this encouragement to really get to know what sakyaditi is in this retreat. Say, I am an unenlightened person practicing now in order to become enlightened in the future. And as I was saying yesterday, I deliberately create this, but I listen to it. My relationship to it is listening, not judging. I'm not making any comment about it as good or bad, right or wrong. It's like this sense of I am somebody. I am not good enough. I am unenlightened. I need to do something to become enlightened. This is all about the sense of sakyaditi, wanting to get something that I think I don't have yet. So if I practice meditation in order to become, I'm operating from sakyaditi. And that's why now I really try to avoid any kind of reinforcement of sakyaditi, being in a teacher's position, trying to tell you how, what's wrong with you, or how you should practice, or get you to just reinforce the sense of yourself as this person, this personality with these limitations, and reinforcing your identities with the conditions. So if you notice, my aim during this retreat is not to reinforce Sakyaditi, but to encourage you to get to know it. I'm not against it, because it's a part of our conventional way of living with each other, but to see it so it's no longer a fetter. It no longer is the cause of suffering when you see it for what it is. And of course, in terms of Dhamma, what it is anicca, dukkha, anatta. So this word anatta, non-self, is a strange word for most of us in the beginning, because we believe so much in ourselves. One thing, I remember when I first started meditation, I could see anicca and dukkha quite easily, but anatta, one thing I do know, I'm here. I'm this person, and I feel like this, and these are my problems. And then for the first couple of months, 3 months almost, in meditation, I just had anger arise all the time. My anger, I didn't want this anger. I wanted tranquility and peace. I ordained as a monk to have permanent peace and bliss. And the first 3 months, all I got was anger. So, then resisting, controlling, trying to get rid of it. And it wasn't due to anything in the monastery. I wasn't being mistreated or abused by anybody in the monastery. It was living by myself for the first time, isolated in a little kuti, a little hut, with nothing to do all day. So unresolved emotions started coming up. There was no TV to look at, no telephone, radio, nobody to talk to. Nobody could speak English there anyway. And so, you had it was very difficult to distract. So you had to sit there and just bear with unresolved emotional conditions that had been suppressed for a lifetime. I was about 32 years old at the time. Well, probably many of you have had similar experiences when you find yourself in these, pastoral settings, these forest places with waterfalls, you're expecting bliss, and instead you end up with obsessive thoughts and feelings, and maybe repressed anger or fears start manifesting into consciousness. But then in terms of Dhamma, we're looking, bearing with this, being patient, accepting, welcoming it, in fact. So this sense of welcoming, I found a skillful means that I had to develop, because my tendency is to resist what I don't like. So I could see this really habitual resistance to certain feelings. And a lot of it was real conceit, like I can't be bothered with this silliness, these stupid, nonsensical thoughts. Because, I'm an intelligent man, and I can't be bothered with trivia. I only deal with real Dhamma, serious questions, and things of great importance, because I'm such an intelligent, gifted, special person. And you listen to yourself go on like that, you realize this is, Sakyaditi, self-view. I can't waste my time with nonsense and trivia. It's a real sense of I'm above it all. So you listen and you hear your own conceits, pride manifesting, but don't. It's good, to see it, to be the Buddho, seeing it in terms of Dhammo, rather than judging and saying, oh, I shouldn't feel conceited, I shouldn't be proud. We all know what we should or shouldn't be, don't we? That's not a great discovery, but this is what arises. Like I always had the idea that I wasn't conceited. And so that was another kind of conceit, wasn't it? So this sense of listening and even nonsense, because of my pride and my sense of can't be bothered with trivia, nonsense, rubbish, then a lot of 32 years, there's a lot of suppression of things that, I just can't be bothered with that. That's a stupid thought, can't be bothered with that. That's silly, can't be bothered with that. So this is the resistance. There's always this, can't be bothered, that's silly, that's stupid, can't be bothered. I don't want that in my mind, and resist. So in terms of the second noble truth, this is like, I began to see it in terms of vipavadanha, desire to get rid of. This was quite a revelation, because I saw, desire is always, the English word desire usually has a kind of pejorative meaning. Like it is always slightly not very good or wholesome to have desires. But in Pali, the word danha, translated generally into English as desire, you can have good desires, wanting to be a good person, wanting to become a good person, wanting to help others, wanting to be altruistic. These are good desires, noble desires. Some other desires are mean and nasty and conceited and ugly. But desire is not about, it is an energy. It's not, it's something that arises and ceases according to conditions. So, in the second noble truth, you're investigating desire, and get to know desire, not get rid of it, because that's vipavadanha, isn't it? Desire to get rid of desire is still desire. You're still stuck with this. I can't be bothered with these bad desires, so I will ignore them, resist them, suppress them. And then, of course, you pay the price, because what you suppress, you're really reinforcing. And it'll come out sometime, and we find ourselves suddenly enraged over somebody doing some trivial thing, because we've suppressed anger for so long, and then somebody slams the door and we blow up. Or we're in a situation where we can't distract ourselves. And so we become frightened and paranoid of everything, because we've suppressed that. And so even though on the rational level we may realize there's nothing to be afraid of, he's saying, don't be afraid, there's nothing to be afraid of. That's one way of suppressing again, isn't it? It's just trying to convince yourself there's nothing to fear. But getting to know fear, wanting to get rid of fear, is vipavadanha. I don't want this, I want to suppress it, or get rid of it, or ignore it. But when there's fear, then it's like this. If I feel frightened by something, it's like this. So I'm welcoming emotions that before I resisted. And welcoming doesn't mean I'm approving or liking them, isn't it? It's not about welcoming because I'm so glad that fear has come for a visit. It's still, it is, fear is like this. So this sense of welcoming is, using this word welcome is a skillful means I developed in order to counteract the kind of very strong habitual tendency to resist, to suppress, to push away or ignore. So that could be like emotions like fear, or it just can be nonsense and stupidity and triviality. Because I noticed that sometimes there would be just utter nonsense going on in my head. Just silly things, stupid thoughts, rubbish. And you think, where is this coming from? What's wrong with me that I'm here, sitting here meditating, and then suddenly all this nonsense, rubbish, stupidity, silly things, absurdities start coming in. And I can't be bothered. Then I see this desire to can't be bothered, get away from it. Or maybe I've spent a lifetime resisting stupid thoughts, rubbish and nonsense. And so then in the meditation, seeing these emotions that have been resisted or suppressed start appearing into consciousness. So this sense of welcoming them. So it's like when you can welcome something, you're allowing it to be what it is. It's an unconditional welcome. There's no conditions attached. You're willing to accept the condition in its totality without making any bargains with it or demanding anything from it. Just allowing it to be what it is. And then you will, if you begin to trust this, you begin to notice its cessation. Then this way, because you're allowing stupidity or fear or these things to be conscious unconditionally, then you will begin to also recognize that they're changing, they're anicca, dukkha, anatta, and their absence when they cease. So this is like panya, or wisdom, discerning the arising and ceasing of conditions. So when there's some questions here about sound of silence, so I found that this sound of silence practice allows this continuous mindfulness, a kind of sustaining mindfulness with the sound of silence, which welcomes everything. Sound of silence is not a noise that hides things or suppresses anything. You can hear it behind all kinds of noise, music, and I've trained myself to even in Amaravati, we have a lot of grass to cut, lawns to mow, and we have these these lawnmowers that make a lot of noise. So I can hear the sound of silence, and then I don't develop irritation towards the lawnmower. A lot of the monks and nuns do. They just get irritated by noise. But and I used to also, but I see it as an opportunity to to pay attention, so that I'm not being caught up in my aversion to the sound of the lawnmower. Now, in developing this sound of silence, the attitude, it's not the danger always in talking about it is that you imagine it, you kind of conceive it as something, and then you start looking for what you're conceiving. So even the word sound is kind of misleading, because it's you think of it as like music, or maybe you're looking for the angelic chorus, something like that, where angels start singing, or harp music. Like something pleasant like that. But you think of the cosmic vibration. Then you're conceiving it as something very special, and very refined. So naming it even the naming is merely a pointing. It's not a description. It's not a definition. So when I use this sound of silence, the word sound of silence, it's not a description of anything. It's merely words that point, or hopefully help you to recognize it. So to recognize this is just opening. If you're looking for it, you'll never find it. You just recognize it. So it's an attitude of relaxed attention, openness, listening, receiving, these words. And then you might hear kind of like a kind of higher pitch vibration or sound, whatever way you want to describe it. Now, some people experience in different ways, so I'm just telling you about my experience, because that's what I know. But also, the attitude is the important thing, not the sound of silence as a kind of attainment. I've got to get it. Be observant of how you create a desire to get it. Because I'm talking about as if it's really something important, so you want to get it. Notice this desire to get something you don't have. So in this, the second noble truth, the desire for becoming, trying to get something you don't have, wanting peace and tranquility when you're confused and fraught, wanting to get rid of your chattering mind, your obsessions, your emotional fears and desires, wanting to get rid of them is like this. So, like listening, this desire to resist. I've studied this so thoroughly. This tendency to resist life, this pushing away what I can't be bothered with, or what I'm frightened of or don't want. This pushing, resisting is like this. And suddenly I see it. There's awareness, and then I see this kind of this feeling of wanting to get rid of something I don't like. Recognizing that that's Vipavadana. The value of the Pali Buddhist tradition is that it gives you really good vocabulary to use. It's not modern psychology or science. It's quite skillful vocabulary. Pali teachings like the Four Noble Truths, the dependent origination is something really worthy to use. Or this 10 fetters and 4 stages. So the 4 stages, stream entry, we make a big deal about that. How many of you are sotapannas, And are there any arahants in the room? Some of you have been meditating for years. What are you, a sakadagami or an anagami? I mean, people come to me and ask me these questions. What have you attained, Ajahn Sumedho? Are you a stream enterer yet? Or an arahant? I haven't attained anything. Now that is like, I mean, you spent 42 years of your life, your youth is gone, you're an old man and celibate for 42 years and you've just got nothing for it. What a disappointment. Or you haven't attained anything. But this is why that way of thinking doesn't work anymore. It's not about attaining. These words are dangerous, attaining and achieving. Because they are reinforcing sakyaditthi. Because my ego, my sense of my self-importance depends on success, on attainment, on achievement. Spending 42 years in the monastic life, I've attained something. I've really, gotten something out of it. I've really, I think I'm an arahant, And at least I hope I am, maybe, I'm not sure yet. But the ego will, is like that. It's about, I want to get something I don't have yet. I want to achieve something. I want to be successful. I don't want to be a failure. These are worldly dhammas, isn't it? In the States, in America, to be a failure is really, that's what we dread. Being a failure is like worthless person, failure. And we worship success. How successful is your monastery? How many monks do you have? How many nuns do you have? How many people come? How many branch monasteries? Oh, you're successful, they say. They say, you're very successful. And this is, this is because success is the way the world thinks, success or failure. But in Dhamma, it's not about success or failure. It's about letting go, relinquishing, understanding. And so, the consciousness is not something it's not mine. When there's mindfulness, sati sampajanya, the sense of me as a separate person arises and ceases in that consciousness. Because I don't sustain it, I don't try to hold on to this sense of me as somebody, a person that's attained or has achieved or failed at anything. It doesn't apply anymore. It's not about me attaining stream entry or becoming an arahant. These are merely conventions to help you to reflect on the reality of your own life. But they're not meant to be sakyaditthi, because sakyaditthi is the first fetter that blocks off stream entry. So anyone that goes around announcing they're a stream enterer, I wouldn't trust. Not to mention an arahant, because when you can overestimate your ego can really delude. Mine can is a very deceitful ego I have. I don't trust it. It lies. It tells lies. My ego does. So it's untrustworthy. But this awareness then is not about me as being specially gifted with awareness. It's natural. It's recognizing it's real. It's anatta. It's not sakkaya-ditthi. So anatta, no self, is this. It's this pure awareness. And so it transcends your thinking process. So when you try to figure it out, you'll get yourself into a confused state, because thinking will just cause doubt. And am I really? Is this really anatta, or have I got it wrong? Maybe I'm just fooling myself. Maybe I just believe that I don't have a self, when maybe I really do. I'm just deluding myself. I want to feel I've gotten something out of 42 years, so I'm trying to, I'm modest, and I feel I'm quite a modest person, so I'm not going to make great claims. So, I've heard monks and nuns do this. They, well, I haven't really, but I'm still one of the Batuchanas. That means a totally unenlightened person. So they think that false modesty is better. But it's another lie. It's another deceit, another sakkaya-ditthi. I've just become a nicer person. I'm more content and a little happier than I used to be. And it's very modest, very English. So but it's still sakkaya-ditthi. So notice, like sakkaya-ditthi is, you create it with thought. I am this body. This is my body. I am American. I am Ajahn Sumedho. I'm a Buddhist monk. I'm a Theravadan Buddhist monk. My teacher is Ajahn Chah, and I'm disciple of Ajahn Chah, and it goes on and on. This is mine, me and mine, but you can listen to this. You're the observer of this sense of I am this way. I want to become something. I want to get rid of something. Is like this. So these three categories of desire I found extremely helpful to begin to just notice what it is. Because we can operate in meditation with vipavadana. Bhavadana, vipavadana. Desire to attain jhanas, good concentration, absorptions, desire to achieve sotapanna, sakadagami, anagami arahant, wanting to become a bodhisattva or a Buddha or whatever. There's all kinds of altruistic things, objects that one can want to become. Now, it's not that this is wrong, but it is still bhavadana. I'm not a bodhisattva. I'm still self-centered, but I hope in this lifetime to purify myself enough so I can become a bodhisattva. What is that? That I am, so far I'm not this, but I hope to become this in the future. Or maybe in the next lifetime. If I keep all the precepts and practice hard, I might, hoping to be reborn as a bodhisattva in the next life. And I know Buddhists that want to become Buddhas, the next Maitreya Buddha. They hope they're spending this life doing good works, which is admirable. It's not to be disparaged, but they still miss the point of the directness of the Buddha Dhamma. So the altruistic goals and the sense of yourself, as and to be a bodhisattva, you can't be selfish. everything. The last blade of grass is you're willing to put off final nirvana until the last blade of grass is enlightened. Well, that is incredibly unselfish, isn't it? Especially when you live at Amravati where there's grass everywhere. So, but and so then when we do feel selfish, we feel guilty. I hate myself because I have these selfish moments. And I just hate it, I can't stand myself. I'm so ashamed of myself because sometimes I'm not all that good, I'm not thinking about the last blade of grass, I'm thinking about me. And in maybe a very selfish way, and heck with the rest of you. Now that also, whether it's selfish or altruistic, this is a creation of the mind, isn't it? It's a judgment. The altruism is beautiful, selfishness is not. So this is a value judgment. What's beautiful and altruistic, and what is mean, selfish, and you should be ashamed of it, is like this. Now these are awareness of these conditions. These are conditions. When you're feeling, in your grand magnanimous form, to sacrifice everything until the last blade of grass is enlightened, the conditions for that kind of magnanimity are present. You're feeling maybe good. But then life changes, and things go wrong, and things fall away, and it brings maybe very selfish feelings up into consciousness. So in terms of, contemplating Dhamma, the Buddha knows the way it is. All conditions are impermanent, whether they're beautiful and grand, magnanimous, or mean, selfish, and nasty. All conditions are seen in this way of anicca, dukkha, and anatta. So they call it the three characteristics of existence, because these three characteristics are common to all conditions, whether it's beautiful and refined or coarse and ugly. From the physical body, the planet, the earth, the gross elements to the most refined levels of concentration. Anything that all conditions, the conditions depend on other conditions for their presence. And when the conditions change, then say supporting a magnanimous state of mind, then you can't sustain it. You can't sustain that as an ongoing, permanent state of consciousness. But what is self-sustaining, that you don't sustain through will or desire, is awareness. So this awareness then is recognizable. Now what I developed over the years with the sound of silence is really recognizing it and then sustaining it, like floating on a stream. Maybe counting to 5 while listening to the sound of silence. So I go 1, 2, 3, and I'm listening to the sound of silence. It's a way of keeping the mind focused on this. Or mala beads, you can use mala beads, 1 bead, sound of silence, and things like that. Ways of I have notebooks in my kuti, just written, pages written silence, 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 or bhutto, 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 and just, but each time I write the word silence, I'm listening on the sound of silence. So this is one way of beginning to recognize, sustaining this that we kept learning to rest in it, to open to it. So it's a natural state. And then no matter how many times you lose it and get carried away with your emotions or thoughts or anything, you have this remembering, sound of silence. And then through the years, this becomes stable. This still point, it's like it's stabilized. It's just natural state that you don't, you notice at any moment. It's recognizable all the time. So even now, as I'm talking, I'm aware of this sound of silence. It doesn't stop me from talking. It's not like concentrating on an object where you have to shut down and focus on one thing. This has this expansive sense of embracing life. So it's whether you're washing the dishes or walking Jongram or whatever, this is still this sense of stillness is ever present. Now, since there's the person, like this personality, is your personality changes according to the conditions. Whether the sun's out or it's cold and wet, or whether you're feeling healthy or you're feeling sick, or you've had good news that you've won the lottery, or you've heard bad news that you've lost your fortune and you have to go bankrupt. Your personality will change accordingly. And so today I'm happy, tomorrow I'm miserable. And so this is what we call itabhajyata in Pali, with it's dependent conditions. How you feel, the conditions are dependent on other conditions. But this is the unconditioned, this awareness. The gate to the deathless is open. So this awareness, this is a simple gap where we suddenly stop just going around with our thoughts and habits. We stop and just listen. This is the gate to the deathless. The unconditioned, the unborn. And this deathless is the background. It doesn't cancel out anything. It doesn't suppress anything. It's not about, it embraces everything. It's all inclusive, it's unconditioned. It's metta, unconditioned love. It's uncritical. Like with metta practice, isn't it? It's cultivating uncriticalness. You have metta for all sentient beings. It's not more metta for the good ones and only a little for the bad ones. It's not you deciding how much of your metta is going to your friends, and maybe you can spare a couple of % of your metta for the people you can't stand. That's conditioned, isn't it? It's metta, in this sense of loving kindness, is really non-critical, accepting, allowing a condition, whatever its quality, to be what it is. Unconditioned love. So in this word love also is the basis of everything. You begin to recognize that if there was no love, nothing would hold together. Just like when there is no love, when you feel no love and you just criticize, everything becomes very separate and falls apart. You feel threatened, you feel self-conscious, you feel you worry about the future. You're anxious. You're wanting to control everything, so because it's too frightening to lose control, to allow things to be what they are. You've got to sort everything out so that only what you like is you allow into your consciousness. This is fear, this is division, this is not love. And so you live in a realm of fear and self-control and become a control freak. You're afraid of losing control. So in this way, this awareness, the gate to the deathless, is the door, the gap in the samsara that transcends the samsara, where we can see the samsara or the conditioned phenomena in this way of loving kindness, metta, or with awareness, allowing conditions to be what they are, whether they're external, allowing other people to be the way they are. How many of you, always have conditions about other people? You want somebody to be other than what they are. You want the society, you want the spirit rock, or you want something to be something else. You can imagine it better than the way it is. Or in the monastery, you have to live with people who, you personally may not like very much. But then this metta is allowing people, individuals, to be what they are. It's not conditional. I'll let you become a monk or a nun if you change your ways and live your life so that you do not upset me anymore. So it's like, you're coming from this self-controlling, centered personality to this expansive, all-inclusive, but relating to all conditioned phenomena with welcoming and understanding, with metta. And that's mindfulness. Sati sampajanya, sati panya. So this evening, that's enough for this evening, and offer this for your reflection.
The Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed One, I render homage to the Buddha, the blessed One. The teaching so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dharma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha.